Hello everyone. Welcome to this Sunday's live stream. My name is Brittany Lewis. I am a professional artist, graphic designer, and tarot deck enthusiast. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And I'm super excited this Sunday because I've made some progress, right? And I'm gonna show you all about that. But before I do, one of the quickest, easiest ways that you can help me out on this live stream is by hitting the like button. So if you enjoyed this stream, if you think other people will enjoy this stream, or you just like seeing me talking about the thing I'm passionate about, please do hit that like button. It helps me out so much. Another way that you can support me or just learn about me as an artist and a graphic designer is by visiting my website blewisarts.com, and all the links for everything will be down in the description below. There you will find information about working with me. You'll be able to see a little bit of my graphic design portfolio, and also you will be able to shop some of your favorite art that I've created over the years. So if there's something that you're interested in, please do check out the description below. And so without further ado, I'm bubbling with excitement because we making some progress on this thing. So I want to show you guys what I've done. So over the last few months now, we've been working on the threes of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So we have gone through the entire development process from creating a development sheet, which is what we're going to be doing today for the next set of cards. So we've gone through the whole process of creating a development sheet. We have brainstormed, we have sketched, we have done thumbnails, we have done all kinds of things to sort of get these cards together. So when I was creating the development sheet, one of the things that I did was, and we'll go through this again because we're planning the next set, but one of the things that I did was that I had, sorted all of my cards into suits, right? Gave keywords and did thumbnails and all of that. So I'm going to show you, just as a reminder, what those cards look like, and I'm going to show you the two that I just completed. So I'm so excited. I'm really excited. I think primarily because the Three of Cups took such a long time. I think we were streaming on that one for like 12 streams, right? But the last two cards I was able to finish in like 2 weeks, and that's sort of how it goes with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. I have cards that I'll spend hours and hours and hours on, and then I will have cards that I just knock out the park pretty easily and pretty quickly. So as a reminder, we started with the Three of Wands. Now the Three of Wands is all about discovery. I used one of the characters that has shown up in this deck a couple of times. She is from the Strength card and also the Page of Swords. So this particular character is on a little bit of a journey, and the idea behind this card was to create sort of a discovery scene. So she's discovering this gateway in the distance, right? So we have that. I showcased the three wands in the picture. Great, looks good. This was the first one I did, and one thing I will say is that as I've gone through the fours, like they progressively got, not the four, excuse me, as I've gone through the threes, they've progressively gotten better. So although I love this card, like they get even better, right? So I'm super pumped up about it because the last two, they my jam. All right, so that was the Three of Wands. After the Three of Wands, we spent quite a few weeks on the Three of Cups. Now the Three of Cups talks a lot about collaboration, which all of the threes do. They do speak to collaboration, but they also, this one specifically speaks to celebration and community. And so I designed this to be a coming of age scene where our main character, who is the little girl, is going through this coming of age ceremony. And so they're creating an energy generating all of this energy around this young woman as she's sort of, coming of age, right? This is a water card. I put our characters in water, and I thought this was going to be my favorite one. I did. I was like, I got all kinds of goodies in this thing. I got the necklaces from, I think I used the necklace from the Queen of Cups. I got sage in there. I got tambourines and, head wraps and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things. In this particular card, I modeled the grandmother figure after the Queen of Wands. So she's wearing the same necklace, so she sort of has on the same color, the yellow like I am wearing, as our Queen of Wands. And so I leaned into the Mother, the Maiden, and Crone. And so I just thought, you know, before I even got to the other two cards, I was like, oh yeah, this is the one right here. Right? I love it. I think it came out really well. As an artist, of course, I'm always sort of seeing the parts where I could have done better or improved the process. But I'm really happy with this card. I'm really happy with all four of them. So this one came out really well. It took a long time. For whatever reason, it took a really long time to complete. But it's done. I'm super happy about that. Now, during my Wednesday streams, which is the Bring Your Own Project streams, I worked on the Three of Pentacles. So I didn't really do a whole lot of discussion in our regular Sunday live streams about the Three of Pentacles. But in case you did not see any of those streams, the Three of Pentacles is an idea that came by way of my son. So he was helping me out. I was running through sort of the process of like, hey, I was thinking, trying to figure out, you know, how to express this particular idea. And he helped me out. He came out with this idea. I thought it was a wonderful idea. Again, threes dealing with collaboration. And this particular card deals a lot with teamwork. So in the original source material, and I'll show you that here in a bit. In the original source material, it shows three people sort of working on building a cathedral, right? And so each person has a separate function. And so my son decided, hey, you should do the Three Pentacles as stars, and you should have each person within the scene, you know, having a different sort of role in this stargazing. And shout out, hey PL, I didn't even see you there. I'm sorry. I hope you're doing well. I'm just running off at the mouth. But yeah, so each person in this card has a separate function. I hadn't seen anything like this. I really liked it. And so, of course, I had to add a little bit of glow, razzle, dazzle, because I don't know that this will be the Cosmic Gateways Tarot without a little bit of a glow. So this is the Three of Pentacles. I love how this one came out. It only took me about, I think, 5 hours total to complete. The Three of Cups, I didn't even clap. I didn't even clock the number of hours that I spent on it, because what ended up happening is, because the file is so large, I was having trouble like saving it, and it was just went through this whole thing, right? It's a huge file. It took a really long time to work on, but I got it done, and I'm glad to have it done. Three of Pentacles was a lot easier, a lot more smoother sailing. I think the very first episode of that Bring Your Own Project Live, where I worked on this particular card, I did have a little bit of trouble with the proportions, just sort of making sure that the people were of the right size, like their arms and things like that were of the right size. So I did have a little bit of trouble, and that's where I leaned into the 3D models that come with Clip Studio Paint, which is the program that I am working in. And it turned out really well, right? So I used that tool. It helped me out a whole bunch. And so I was able to create this scene. And sometimes as artists, we sort of get into the mode of wanting to put everything on a page. This one and the next card are examples of where simplicity works really, really well, right? And so love this card. So shout out to my son, because I thought this was such a great idea for the card. Now, the final card, which is the one that we were working on during our Sunday streams over the last couple of Sundays, was the Three of Swords. Now, of all of these threes, I think, actually I know that the Three of Swords is by far my favorite. I don't know why I love this card so much, because it channels sort of an emotional anguish. It has so much feeling in it to me as an artist. But the part that I really, really enjoy about this, and this sort of how it goes when I'm re-examining art, just looking at art in general, but especially the art that I make, is that I'll find aspects of the picture that I absolutely love. So before I get into explaining what this is about, I'll give you an example. So if I go back to the Three of Cups, even though this is a beautiful card and there are lots of really juicy bits in it, my favorite part of these cards, or this particular card, is the splashes and sort of the indication of water on their skin. I love that. I don't know why it is. It is so satisfying because it didn't really take a lot to do, right? I didn't have to render it to the gods, which is my favorite saying. I didn't have to do too much work to it. It was very much a very free feeling motion as I was sort of drawing on the screen, and it gave me such a wonderful effect. It really adds to this. Another favorite part of this particular card is the way that her dress sort of melts into the water, and you can kind of see like the, you know how if you stick your hand in water, you can kind of see parts of the skin and parts of whatever is in it above as a part of the reflection. I just love that. So that's sort of how it goes with me in artwork. Like I will like an entire picture, but I will find little bits and pieces of an image that I absolutely love. With the Three of Swords, it is very much the same thing, right? So if I zoom in here and I'll show you guys a little bit about what I mean. I love the fact that yes, this looks very much like a hand and claws. There are also these graphic sort of lines and elements where I just drew in the area around the knots, right? I also really love the texture that I was able to create in the heart cushion itself and how it bleeds into the neck. It just looks very painterly, right? And so as someone who has a background in traditional art, anytime that I can sort of create and emphasize the texture of within digital art, the better I feel about it, right? So it's not, too smooth. It's not super perfect. And I think it lends itself to the meaning of this card. So of course, this card again is a heartbreak. This is sort of the quintessential heartbreak, sort of emotional turmoil card. And I think that I did a really good job, not to toot my own horn, but I am extremely pleased with the way that this particular image came out, because I can feel, and maybe it's because I sort of created it, but I can feel sort of the emotion, the gripping energy of this card. And I'll show you what the original of that one looks like. Now, originally in the Rider-Waite-Smith source material, which is what this deck is based on, you have just a regular old heart. You have it stabbed 3 times with swords. And of course, you have the clouds in the background. And as someone who is sort of challenging myself to find new ways to express similar ideas, because there have been thousands of decks created in existence and are in circulation. But I wanted to sort of push myself to, create something somewhat new, right? And so the idea behind this one was to have heartbreak not sort of at the whim of life and whatever, as the heart sort of shows in the original source material, just the heart in the middle of the sky. I wanted to put the heart in someone's hand, and I wanted that hand to be gripping the hell out of this heart, right? I also wanted the chords to sort of squeeze I just wanted it to feel real raw and tough and all of that. And so I used my own hand to pose this. I had a bundle of wool socks. I squeezed it. Now my nails aren't super long. They aren't as sort of sharp or anything like that. I used a little bit of my imagination, and I also taped like a piece of paper to my finger to get that one finger right, the angle of it right. And I was able to sort of create something that I really, really am pleased with. So of all the four, or not all the fours, of all the threes, this one is by far my favorite. I can't stop looking at it for whatever reason. I guess it's the last one that I did. I don't know, but I hope you guys enjoy it. This is the 3 of Swords of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So just to run it back again, I'll show you one more time what those threes looks like, and then what we'll do is go ahead and we will start developing the 4s of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So again, we started with the 3 of Wands, which is beautiful. Love this card, right? And again, to me, they progressively get a whole lot better as we go. So that is the 3 of Wands. I think it took maybe 3 or 4 live streams for us to complete this. Very simple concept. I love the idea that there is a glowing pyramid in the back, because of course, again, we're working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and this is a deck that leans heavily into sort of the idea of possibility. And I think that this card in particular really, really shines a light in the possibility of something beyond this sort of deserted or this very dry and barren land that she's coming out of. So that is the 3 of Wands, and I'll go ahead and close that out as we go, right? So we have the 3 of Pentacles, which was the card that I was working pretty much at the same time that I was developing the 3 of Swords. This one we did during the Bring Your Own Project stream. So if you like a lot more chill stream, you just want to sit and work with me while I listen to music. Wednesdays, next week it'll be 12:45 p.m. Central. We'll do your Bring Your Own Project, and I'll be working on one of these cards or something else. We'll see. But this is the 3 of Pentacles. This card is all about collaboration and teamwork. This is an idea, again, that came by way of my son, who had the idea of having our 3 figures stargaze. So again, I'll show you what the original source material looks like. There are 3 people working in a cathedral. You have your builder, you have your priest, and I guess you have sort of your architect or supervisor. And so in our 3 of Pentacles for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, you have our spotter, so the person who's actually looking out, or really the viewer, the person who's looking out at the stars. You have the person who's spotting them, and then you have the person who is charting the stars. So each person has their own function in this particular image, and I love how this turned out. It really came out really, really nice. So the next one is going to be, I believe, the 3 of Cups. And again, the 3 of Cups deals a whole lot with celebration. All of them I feel channel collaboration in some way, except maybe the Three of Wands. But not the Three of Wands, the Three of Swords. But in our original source material, we have three women who are sort of celebrating and dancing around and feasting and all of those things. And so I added just a little more backstory to that concept by creating a coming of age ceremony. So I love this. Each one of the women holds sort of an item that brings and charges the energy of this ceremony. And so I feel like there's a lot of good celebration, a lot of good vibes. And again, one of my favorite parts is the splashes, which is hella random, but it is my favorite part of this image. So we'll close that out as well. Get rid of that one, and we'll get rid of the Three of Pentacles. And again, finally, we have the Three of Swords, which is all about emotional sort of turmoil, even though this is a swords card. Now, swords tend to lean into the mental, so that is something that may add a little more context to the reader, because swords again are the mental, but this is sort of the collaboration, or sort of the joining of the two energies. So you have the mental and the emotional turmoil that this person is sort of feeling at the hands of whoever is holding this heart and squeezing this heart. So that is the Three of Swords, my favorite of the bunch. And that's it. So today we're going to be developing the Fours of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, I've done quite a bit of research, which I tend to do. And just like we did with our threes, I'll sort of show you the process of how I come up with ideas, how we sort of organize the information and all of that. So before we begin, the research that I've done comes from this set of books. So just in case you're developing your own deck or you want to learn more about tarot and numerology and that sort of thing, these are the resources that I use. So the first book that I used was Lloyd's Book of Numbers by Lloyd Strayhorn. Love this book. If you've never heard of Lloyd Strayhorn, he is what I would consider to be a master numerologist. So I get a lot of really great information that helps me develop this deck from Lloyd Strayhorn's books. And I believe he has quite a few. I own 3, I'm sure, of his books. Very, very helpful information. And this helped me sort of break down the number 4. So because that becomes important when we're developing cards and creating concepts and keeping the reader in mind and sort of, going through that whole process, learning about the different aspects of tarot, such as numerology, really does come in handy. The next book that I used was Tarot Wisdom by Rachel Pollack. Of course, I have a lot of areas marked out for that, but this is Tarot Wisdom by Rachel Pollack. I like this book for a resource because she not only breaks down the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is the deck that I am sort of modeling mine after, she also gives information about other decks as well. Hey, Draw Sketchbook, so happy to see you there, right? So she gives other information about different decks as well. And then I use another one of her books, which is the 78 Degrees of Wisdom, of Tarot Wisdom, a tarot journey to self-awareness. So let me read that again. 78 Degrees of Wisdom, a tarot journey to self-awareness. And that book looks like this. Again, she does a really, really great job of breaking down sort of the symbolism and the meaning behind the different cards. So even though these are both by the same author, they do actually add additional context to the information that I'm looking for, right? And then finally, I used Intuitive Tarot by Bridget Esselmont, who is also known as Biddy Tarot. I used to read tarot on her website, biddytarot.com. So for me, she is probably a great authority on the subject. But that is where I sort of got all of my information from, in addition to my own sort of knowledge of the medium, right? All right. So we're planning these 4s. The first thing that I want to do is I am going to organize this information based on the suits. So we're working in the minor arcana cards, and this is a little bit of a tarot lesson, but this is sort of what I have to go through. Not what I have to go through, but what I do go through when I am developing images, because they don't just come out of the sky. I'm not just sort of copying the source material information to an extent, but I am sort of giving myself the opportunity to think about these things, the concepts and the images, from a slightly different perspective. So it all works out that way. So the first thing I want to do is sort of divide my space into my 4 categories, just like we did with the 3s. I'm gonna make sure that we're working in good order. There we go. There may be a slight lag on my end, hopefully not so much, but we'll do the best that we can with what we have. So within these 4s, and I'll show you what those look like, the originals, we have the cups, right? Oh, come on now. We'll write a little bit slower. So we have cups. We have the 4 of Pentacles, and I'm going to abbreviate that as Pent. Right? We have the swords. And then we have the wands, should be the wands. All right, so I'm going to start here. This is sort of how I approach each and every one of my tarot development sheets, and I'll show you again what one of those looks like. Let me show you the twos because that one was pretty elaborate, just to give you an idea of where we're going. So from here, what I will do is create thumbnails just like this. So this is pretty much what we're doing, right? I'm going to be developing and adding words and context and things like that to sort of help me come up with ideas for the fours. And again, I did do a bit of research in regards to this ahead of time, just so that I can organize the information. So you guys are not watching me flip through books, and take notes and things like that. So we'll go from there. All right. So the cups typically deal with the emotional realm. So the emotions. This suit deals with intuition. All right. This suit deals a lot with love, right? With family. That is the suit with the unconscious. Right, which means the things that are hidden, right? And also the subconscious. I'll say the unconscious and the subconscious. So that is the part of yourself that is sort of, your natural programming. Excuse my handwriting, there is a lag. So that is the suit of cups. The cups is also a water card, right? So water tends to show up a lot of times when it comes to cups, and that has its own set of connotations. The next thing we have is the pentacles, which deals with materialism. Oh, let me slow down. Materialism, there we go. This also does with physical relationships. This is all of your 3D things, right? So for those of you who study sort of the occult and metaphysics, pentacles is your 3 dimensions, right? So you got your physical relationships. This also means sexual relationships. If I can spell, there we go. All right, this also deals a lot with money and finance, stability, that kind of thing. All right, your swords, of course, and your pentacles are an earth element. So now if we were thinking about zodiacs, right, this will be your Taurus, this will be your Capricorn, and this will be your Virgo. Your water is going to be Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. And then swords, of course, is going to be air, wands, fire. So that sort of corresponds with each of these. And I have to take all of this information into consideration as I am developing each of these cards. So your swords deals with the ego. This deals with the mental, right? This also kind of deals with movement. Water as well deals a lot with movement. Let's see what else. I'm going to go back to one of my other sheets and see if I'm missing anything. Oh, yes. Decisions, choices, that kind of thing. Balance, right? Oh, that was twos, actually. All right. So swords, right? This is the realm of swords. And of course, this is air. So this is going to be all of your air signs. Now, your wands deal with spirituality. This deals with the spark of life and creativity. Let's see. I'll just change that from spark of life to creativity. And sort of the spark of life, as well as, and I'm going to check my notes real quick, inspiration, right? And determination. All right, so these are some keywords that are going to help me figure out how to best articulate the ideas, right? How to best articulate sort of the illustrations that I want to create for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And of course, this is fire. So this is your Sagittarius, your Leo, your Aries, fire signs. All right, now with that, we also have to take into consideration the numerology. Now, again, I used Lloyd Strayhorn's book, Lloyd's Book of Numbers, which is super helpful when it came to figuring out the numerology, because when it comes to sort of the anatomy of a tarot card, let's take a look at this. Four of Wands, for example, or Four of Swords. We have the number 4 at the top. We have 4 swords, and then we have all of the things that are happening within the image, right? So when creating the cards, I have to take the same things into consideration. We have all of the things, taking swords for instance, all of the things that come with it, the ego, the mental, as well as movement. And looking at this card, I'm like, okay, well, there are 4, right? 4 means something, right? It's not just the number of swords, but it does have a significance, as well as you being an air element, as well as having also the zodiac and astrology sort of placements. So all of this has to go into consideration when developing these cards. All right, so if we're looking at the number 4, 4s deal a lot with, going back because I got all my notes here, right? 4s deal a lot with structure. Uh-oh. And excuse my handwriting again, because there is a little bit of a lag, so it's not quite drawing at the same speed that I'm writing. So it does look a little wonky, and that's okay. All right, so it does with structure. Stability is a big thing with the 4s in the or not in the cosmic, just in tarot in general. Stability. Also, what I found within the 4s is it deals a lot with isolation, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment when we start to thumbnail and sort of brainstorm some of these ideas. But we have stability, we have foundation, we also have balance. Now, when we were developing the 2s, I don't know that I shared the process of the development of the 2s, but I did share sort of the development sheet, and I'll show you again what that looks like. The 2s deal a lot with balance, as with any even number, right? Because you have a split on both sides. The 2s deal a lot with balance. But one of the things that happens with the 2s is that you have a lot of sort of polarity. So we're dealing with good and bad. We have black and white, one or the other, this or that. That's what we're dealing with the 2s. But with the 6s, child. With the 4s, we have a little more structure, right? So even though there is a this and that, there's a slight degree inward from those poles. So you have a lot more balance and you have a lot more structure, and that shows up in the meaning of the cards, right? So we do have that. We have the foundation. We have organization that comes up, right? And we also have manifestation. And again, one of the running things that I found is sort of studying these cards and trying to figure out how to best articulate the ideas presented in these cards is that a lot of them have a lot to do with isolation, right? So I'm going to add isolation. I hope I spelled it right. That is right. All right. If not, I know what it means. Right. All right. And then from there, the next bit of information, let me go back and make sure I am adding everything I need to add before we go forward. All right. It's our keywords. Very good. Now, based on this, based on the fact that we have our emotions in the cups, we have our materialism, our money, and all of that. We have our ego, we have our movement, and we have the foundation of structure, stability, foundation, organization, manifestation, and isolation, right? A lot of Asians. We have to now decide what are the key words for each of the suits, right? So if I'm going through 4 and I'm thinking about structure, stability, and foundation with the water card with a cup, we have a little bit of a conflict because water is a very flowing element, right? You go outside, if you turn on the faucet, water flows down. You go outside and watch sort of a stream flow, it flows. And so it doesn't necessarily conform to structure. It doesn't necessarily conform to isolation unless there's another thing present, meaning it changes based on the temperature. So water, of course, changes to a gas. If it gets to be too hot, it becomes steam. If it's too cold, it becomes ice. So with the 4 of Cups, what we're looking at is a person who is sort of sitting under a tree with their 3 cups, just baseline reading this, 3 cups. He has 1 cup sort of being offered to him, but he is sitting sort of ambivalent to what's going on around him. This card typically means that this person is sort of detached, right? This also means contemplation, which comes up again with the swords. I'm spelling it wrong. This card also deals a little bit with disinterest, right? But what I found as I dug a little bit deeper is this card also is someone who is sort of saying no to new opportunities. It may be that they are sort of focusing on what's around them or not paying attention to what's around them. Sort of depends on how it comes up in the readings. But this is some of the, so another word would be reevaluation. Right? So this person is someone who is sort of taking a moment to themselves to reevaluate how they're feeling, because again, this is a emotional card, deals a lot with your feelings and your subconscious. So this person is retreating and sort of sitting to themselves while all of these things are sort of around them. They have their 4 cups with them, and then they're being offered another set or another cup. So because of that, that sort of gives us a set of words that we can use, right? In addition to our baseline information, the emotions, intuition, love, family, unconscious, and subconscious, that we can create another sort of scenario for this. Now, as I develop the 4s, one of the things that has sort of happened throughout the deck is that for the most part, some of the cards are very different from your baseline illustrations, right? They're very different from the source material, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But as we go through the numbers, some of them will get pretty close. Now, some of them have gotten close. For example, the 2 of Pentacles is a really great example of how close the Cosmic Gateways tarot representation of a 2 of Pentacles is to the Rider-Waite-Smith, right? So we'll have some instances, and I think this is going to be one that gets fairly close just based on the idea that I have in mind for this card. But before we get to that, let's move on and see what else we have. Now, the next thing is going to be our Pentacles, our Earth card, right? So with this Earth card, now I don't like the arrow, so I'm going to draw it again. All right, that's better. With our Pentacles, we have the keywords of greed. Let me show you what that looks like. Now, this is a person who is sort of hoarding all of their money to themselves. They're keeping all these pentacles to themselves, right? One very interesting thing about this is that he has a coin that covers his crown chakra. He has a coin that covers his throat and his heart chakra. And then he has the soles of his feet sort of hiding these coins. So to me, this to me reads as a greed card. That's just how I read it. Every time I see this, I'm thinking greed. I see someone who is sort of in a scarcity mindset, because greed and lack really to me have the same energy. I remember reading that from Jen Sincero, and I think that made the most sense. They have the same energy, right? A person who is greedy and is hoarding is doing so because they don't think that they'll get a chance to have the same possessions again. That's what this card reads as, right? So he is he's showing it off because we can all see his coins. So he's showing off his coins, but he's also sort of hoarding all of this wealth to himself, right? So as a key word, I would say that he is definitely leaning into scarcity, right? He's a little greedy, right? He is also hoarding. And something, again, that I have not seen mentioned, but just sort of the vibe I get is that he is also somewhat flashy, right? Even though, again, this card deals a lot with being conservative with the amount of money, which goes, again, with the scarcity mentality. So even though I'm going to say flashy, I'm also going to say conservative. So there's a bit of a balance, or a little bit of a conundrum between the two energies. Being conservative, meaning holding on to all of his wealth, right? But he also has that wealth on display. So that's going to come in handy a little bit later, because one of the ideas that I have for this card deals a lot more with that, right? Having that wealth on display, but also sort of not sharing any of it and isolating himself, because another aspect of this card is that he's sitting by himself with a city behind him, and he's sort of just holding on to everything, right? So that is the Pentacles, again, Earth card. I remember reading someone say that when this card comes up, you want to sort of reevaluate your relationship with the material, right? So you want to reevaluate your relationship with the material. That is the Four of Pentacles. Next we have the Air card, which is the Four of Swords. Now this is one that sort of has the same energy as the Four of Cups. Again, the Four of Cups dealt with detachment, contemplation, disinterest, reevaluation, but it also is sort of a rest card. The Four of Swords is definitely a rest card, right? Because if we go back to our Three of Swords, now I'll show you that image again. If we go back to our Three of Swords image. This image again has a lot to do with a mental sort of conflict that really charges the heart, right? This is a lot of emotional anguish, which of course affects our mental. And because of this, when we get to our Four of Swords, which is the next card in the progression, that means that it is time to rest, right? We've felt all the feels. We've done all of the things that come along with being heartbroken with the Three of Swords. And just in case you're just not joining us, I'll show you again this card because this is my favorite of the bunch of the threes. So after we have sort of gone through this particular experience where we're having our heart squeezed, and it's sort of punctured, and, we're going through all of these sort of feelings, we get to the Four of Swords, which deals a lot with rest, right? So it's time for us to take a break. It's time for us to rest. Now, the interesting thing about the source material for this particular card is that we're seeing a tomb, right? So yes, sometimes heartbreak feels like you're gonna die. It does. It feels absolutely like that. What is interesting about this card, if I want to break down the imagery and go a little bit deeper with it, is that yes, it's showing the tomb, but the tomb is open. So that means this is not a final resting place. This is just sort of a temporary condition. And once we sort of rest up, we'll be ready for the Five of Swords, which deals with more conflict. So as we progress with the swords specifically, I know a lot of the times when I'm sort of describing this deck, I say a lot of the times that I do not want to lean into struggle. However, with the swords, we get a lot of the sort of pain and anguish that comes with life, because life is not all love and light, right? Life has its ups and downs and its ebbs and flows and all of the wonderful things. Hey, Black Z2, happy to see you there. Life has all of these things that sort of take place. And so I don't think I should shy away from it, but I do not want this deck to be all doom and gloom. It's just that the swords are heavy, man. The swords are a heavy set of cards. All right, so with the swords, we have rest, right? Again, we've come out of that Three of Swords situation where we have someone who is squeezing the absolute hell out of our heart, and they just will not let us go. And we are sort of feeling every feeling there is to feel, right? After that, we have to sort of rest our minds. Here comes with the Four of Swords, right? So we have rest, we have relaxation. This also again lets us know that this is a temporary condition. This is not, we're not sealed up in this tomb, because of course, again, our source material shows someone in a tomb and they're just sort of laying there with the swords pointing down and the whole thing. But this is not a final resting place because this tomb is still open. So we're just resting, right? So the key words that I have for this is the calm after the storm, but also sort of the preparation before the next step and before the next movement, because again, swords deal a lot with movement. All right, so we have our contemplation again, which shows up with the Four of Cups. And we also have recuperation, because we have to recoup, right? And then recuperation. Ooh. All right, so that is the Four of Swords, is sort of the key words. And for each one, I do have sort of a phrase that'll kind of help me out along the way, and we'll go over that in just a second. But I'm just sharing with you the process, right? Because I have to do this anyway. So I figured why not share it with you and bring you along the journey. So finally, we have the Four of Wands. Now, where the Four of Swords, Pentacles, and Cups all sort of are isolated cards. These are cards that sort of instruct you to sort of just take your time, be quiet, rest your mind, think about things, reevaluate, whether it is reevaluating your relationship to money, whether it is reevaluating the things around you and sort of recognizing what you have around you and sort of ignoring new opportunities with the Four of Cups, whether this is recuperating and sort of resting after a very hard Three of Swords. With the Wands, this card actually deals a lot with celebration, very similar to our Three of Cups. In this case, though, it is more of has a very wedding, marriage, home vibe, right? So with the Four of Pentacles, our keywords are, let me get on back to it. Not Four of Pentacles, sorry, the Four of Wands. Our keywords are home, right? Remember, with the fours, we're dealing with structure, stability, and foundation. So we have a stable home life. This is another card of relaxation. Sort of, right? It's sort of relaxation, but relaxation in terms of being sort of at peace at home, right? Or at peace with your home life, so that you can sort of relax in that aspect. But it is a bit of a celebration party card, right? So we also have harmony with this. Again, this one, if no other, leans into the balance that fours often offer. We have union and we have marriage, right? And of course, there are a few other keywords, but we'll keep it here. With this, the first phrase that sort of comes to mind is home sweet home, right? With the Four of Swords, the phrase that comes to mind for me is the calm after the storm. I know there's a calm before a storm. This also sort of fits this card, right? So we have the calm after the storm. With the Earth card, the first phrase that comes to mind is I got me. I don't know what you gonna do about you, but I got me, right? That is the four energy of the Four of Pentacles. And with the Four of Cups, this one is more about sort of let me take a break, right? Let's take a break. And again, excuse my handwriting. There is a little bit of a lag, but I know what I mean, right? So let's take a break. All right. Now, from here, let's start to thumbnail some ideas. Again, remembering that fours deal with structure, stability, foundation, organization, and manifestation. When it comes to, we'll start with the Four of Wands, because that's one of the ones that I have the clearest idea for. I'll show you again what that looks. Oh, I'll show you, not again, but I will show you what that looks like. This is our original Four of Wands. Now, what it shows is sort of this, I think she described it as a bower or something like that. So there are these four posts and they have this sort of floral arrangement on top. You have two people celebrating what looks like bouquets. So they're celebrating, and then they have some people partying behind them. And then they have their home or sort of a castle, just a community behind them, right? This whole thing sort of depicts a very wonderful, peaceful, open air community, right? All right, for me, I would like to lean into the aspect of the marriage. And when I was actually researching more and digging into this card, the first thing that came to mind was a marriage celebration. And I wanted to do a jumping of the broom ceremony. But with that, I wanted to make sure that I understood sort of the history of jumping of the broom as someone whose ancestors go back to the Quakers, and before, who have been here in the United States for a very long time, including throughout the Atlantic slave trade, chattel slavery. I wanted to sort of dig into the origins of the jumping of the broom ceremony and the sort of rituals that came with marriage for enslaved peoples. For some, because not all had the opportunity to do that. But what I did was I ended up going down this real long rabbit hole. I went down a whole rabbit hole as I was sort of researching the marriage rites and rituals of Black Americans throughout, specifically chattel slavery, and the origin of the jumping of the broom ceremony. What I found was that although we tend to correlate jumping of the broom with sort of holding on to our African traditions as an African American, Black American, what I found is that it actually originates in Europe, right? And so, very interesting story, not to go off on a tangent, but just to sort of tie everything in as to how I'm sort of approaching this card. I learned that it began in Europe, and it was something that Christians thought came from pagans, right? So pre-Christianity came from pagan religions, right? And so when they would allow the African Americans to jump the broom, it was to say that you can do this, but you don't have the same status because this is something that pagans do. Now, as I am creating a tarot deck, that could be interesting, right? That could be a very interesting add to this because it does go into it does tie into mysticism. It is a tradition that we held on to, but I'm not really sure. So I don't really know yet if I want to keep that in or not. But what I do want to do is I do want to lean into a marriage ceremony again. So of course, like I said, I went down a whole rabbit hole. I was reading research papers and all kinds of things, and interviews from previously enslaved peoples, just to sort of understand what it was that they were able to experience and the sort of rituals that they were allowed to have, if at all, to be able to marry and join. But also understanding the implication that at any given moment, they could be ripped apart, because that was sort of the nature of that system, right? So it was very interesting. But anyhow, what I would like to do is I would actually like to lean into the two people. This, of course, is a marriage sort of ceremony. So I'm going to thumbnail. Now, my thumbnails are all stick figures. There's nothing sort of beautiful or anything about this. This is just sort of me laying out the gist of this composition, right? So I do want this to center around two people. I do want it to lean into or look fairly close to the source material. However, I am going to change a couple of things. So we have our two people, our bride and our groom, right? And we'll, again, these are just stick figures. So this is nothing really special or anything like that. Nothing pretty. I don't want to go for anything pretty. I just want to have the indication of some torsos and things like that. I am, again, leaning into the source material relatively heavily. So we want this to feel like a celebration, feel like they're having a good time, and that sort of thing. I'm going to have them up front like this. They're walking down this aisle. As for the 4 wands, what I would like to do is actually have people, right, surrounding them, holding palm fronds or something like that, right? Maybe they're holding, so this will be something like this. Maybe they're holding sort of these just plants, right, over the couple. Now, is this going to take me a long time to draw when it comes time to draw it? Maybe. Right? Maybe. So this might be one of the last ones that we do. But I do want to create this canopy. But I want to create it with the people who are sort of there with them, their community. I want them to be able to be a part of this celebration as well, as they walk or welcome this new couple down this aisle. So this is sort of, and there's a whole lot of lines. So what I'm going to do is add a color so certain parts can stand out, right? And this is sort of the idea that I have. I really want to lean into this idea of union, and I kind of want to, again, lean into the traditions of African American people during chattel slavery. And that is one too many. That is too many fronds. So let me go back. It's only 4, not 6. Okay. There we go. Something like this. I want these people to be our wand bearers, if you will. And of course, all of this will get tightened up as we go. And I can rearrange things, which is what I'm doing now. Just sort of cutting and rearranging things to where it looks a little bit better. We have balance, right? Because again, these cards lean into balance. And I want to make a note so that I don't forget. You know, even though I have my notes in my notebook, I do want to make a note so that I know exactly what I am wanting to illustrate. Just in case by the time I come back to this, I have no idea. Right? And handwriting isn't great, but I'll understand it. So we'll say jumping the broom, and we'll put a question mark because I'm not really sure if that's something that I want to include. One of the things that I do, and which I encourage anyone to do, if you're saying something, make sure you understand what you're saying, right? If you're including something in your art, make sure you understand exactly what it is that you're including. And that's pretty much what I did as I was developing or sort of researching marriage within chattel slavery. I wanted to see where the origins of jumping the broom came from. I wanted to see why that was such a thing. You know what I mean? And to just sort of understand the rites and rituals. And again, I just ended up going down a whole rabbit hole, right? I think the air card is one that I'm not sure about. So for now, I'm going to skip it. But we are going to go to the earth card because that is one that I'm really excited about. I don't know why, but I am. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. But at the very beginning of this movie, one of the brothers, I think it was Keenan Ivory Wayans' brother, died from too much gold. That is what I want to channel in this particular card, right? So yes, it deals with scarcity. It does deal with greed, hoarding, but also conservation and sort of conservativeness and being stable and all of that. I want to sort of lean into the hoarding and the greed aspect and the scarcity mentality of this card. The I got me part of this, right? So as such, what I am going to do is I have two ideas for this. I have two ideas. So one of them sort of leans into the isolation of this character, right? So again, we have this one person. He is, of course, this is Cosmic Gateways Tarot, so it's a little bit futuristic. So it might give him the Star Trek vibes. I don't know. I want him to look as flashy as he could possibly look, right? I am going to have him sort of in the middle of this area, of this crowded area, right? In our original, take it back to the original Four of Pentacles, where the guy is sort of sitting by himself with the city in the background, but he's hoarding all of his goods. I want to go there, right? But I want to do it from a different perspective. I want this person to be just like him. So he's kind of by himself, right? His knees are going to be like here, right? I want him to be sort of biting down on a pentacle. I want him to have these pentacles hanging off his neck, and I want on his hand there to be like a pentacle ring. So those will be our 4 pentacles, right? But around him, I actually want there to be people sort of walking at speed in their own direction, and he's just sort of standing out by himself. And I want him to be covered in gold. And now, of course, I'll make a note that these are people. Walking away in a blur, right? And so all of these notes will sort of help me remember what the idea was, just in case it takes me a couple months to get to this particular card. Hopefully not, because the last 2 came by pretty fast. But that's sort of what I want to do, and I want to lean into the scarcity mentality. Which somewhat opposes the way that I'm illustrating this somewhat opposes the traditional meanings, but I do want to push this. I don't know why it's on my spirit to do. So that's what we're going to do, right? All right, the next idea, so I'm going to say this is number 1. The next idea sort of is the same thing, right? Same guy, same flashy guy, but in this case, we're doing more of a portrait style image, right? So we see him sort of portrait style. So he has his arms here, right? And this arm again is going to be biting into one of his necklaces that he's wearing, sort of like the Olympians, you know how they bite their gold medals, something like that. I want him to let's see, 1, 2, 3. I want him to have these huge gold medallions, and of course he's going to be biting on one. And then on his hand, again, I want there to be this big gold ring, right? I want him to have a grill, the whole thing. But to me, it leans into wanting to reevaluate the relationship with money. So what I'm going to say is this is portrait style. And we're going to have him with a gold grill. And then we want the pentacles to be 3 necklaces. And 1 huge ring. Right? And I want him to look extremely flashy. Because the idea is that some people wear their wealth or just to look wealthy, but not necessarily wealthy. And again, they're sort of hoarding all of these resources to themselves. And I want to lean into that. I want to lean into that in a slightly different way. But that is something that we're going to do. All right. So the last thing, or the last one that I have, and then we'll come back to the air because maybe we can work that out together. But the next one is going to be the four of water, the 4 of cups. And with that, I kind of want to go back to the marriage ceremony. Now, with cups and swords both deal with the intangible, meaning your emotions or your thoughts, something that you can't necessarily touch and feel, but they are present. They are a real thing. And so with the 4 of cups, I do want to revisit the idea of detachment, of reevaluation, of let's take a break. But I do want to also go into sort of the marriage thing because, again, when I was researching the, the 4 of Wands, I went down this whole marriage ceremony rabbit hole, right? And so one of the things that I learned was that in some cultures, it is you are officially married when you offer your husband or your prospective husband a drink of water, right? Or a drink of alcohol or whatever it is. In this case, I want to go the other way. I want to lean into the fact, I read somewhere, I think in one of Rachel Pollack's books, where this person can be someone who's disillusioned with love, because again, this is an emotional card. This person is disillusioned with love, with life, with it, whatever it is that they have going on. They're sort of worked at it as hard as they can, and it just sort of has not worked out. And so they've taken a break. They are done with it. I want to lean into that. So to do that, I'm probably going to stick pretty close to what we have with our source material, where there's a person who is looking somewhat bored with the things that she has or he has. He is being offered something new, but he is not interested in it. The idea that I have is that this is a woman going back to those cultural marriage ceremonies where she's being offered this cup to drink from by a beautiful man who wants to marry her. But because she's had her heart broken, because again, this is the 4 of cups, because she's gone through a lot of emotional turmoil herself, she's sort of bored with it. She don't want no parts of it, right? She's got 3 other offers on the table. Somebody's offering her another one. And so that's sort of how I want to approach this. Now, whether I have her sitting or standing, I am not sure. So for the time being, let's have her standing. And I think I want to have her standing and facing away, right? I want to have her standing, facing away. I do want her arms to be crossed, because she's bored, right? She just don't want to hear it. She is not going for the okie doke. She is just over it. She is over it. She's been there, done that. She is not interested, right? So here is her, this woman. She is, I'm going to make a note to say this is a woman. And she's facing this way, right? But then there's this beautiful, handsome man. I'm going to make him taller than her. Here we go. Come on, handsome. So we got this beautiful, handsome man, and he's offering her a cup. Maybe this is a vessel. She don't want it. She ain't trying to hear it right now. But she also has all of these cups and all of these vessels sort of already, right? We'll sort of put it here, something like this. Now, of course, this is a lot wider than our actual card, so we'll have to change some things around. Another way that we can approach the very same idea is I do want to, and what I'll do is go ahead so that I don't have to draw the man again. What I'll do is copy this over. I will copy and paste it. And then what we'll do is move it down and we'll adjust some things. So maybe she's not standing. Maybe she is sitting next to a tree, just like our source material is. And as she's sort of sitting by herself, minding her business, reevaluating her life, she's not really ready for new opportunities. She's just sort of sitting outside in meditation, getting her life together, protecting her peace, right? We'll go with something very similar to what we have in our source, right? So she's here and she might be just, getting her life together. You're just sitting here evaluating what's going on with her, right? Sitting in lotus pose. And maybe she has her hands sort of resting because she's bored. She's ready for something new, but not quite ready. She's sort of talking herself out of it. And then again, we have our cups down here at the bottom. So when it came time for me to sort of figure out ideas for this card between this and the Four of Swords, because the energy is very similar, because it has a lot to do with rest and contemplation and things like that, I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that read two different messages. We get that with our source material. So again, this is the Four of Cups, and then we have our Four of Swords. So with the Four of Swords, I will probably do something very similar to the Hermit, which is the guy who is in the orange robe and he's meditating by a tree. I'll probably do something similar to that. However, I do like the idea of the source material of this person being sort of in a almost final resting place, because that's what it feels like, but not quite, because their tomb has not been sealed. He's just sort of laying here, right, feeling like he has sort of lost himself due to, again, that Three of Swords. So I'm not really sure. So that is the one card that I will probably work on and try to figure out as I go. But just to recap, because we're just about done, I think I'm just about done with this, and next week we'll start to work on some new cards. Just to recap what we've done so far, what I did was divide each of the suits up, right? So we have 4 suits in our minor arcana cards. That is the cups, the pentacles, the swords, and the wands. With that, each one of those suits has its own set of keywords. With the cups, you're dealing with intuition, love, families, the unconscious and subconscious. Now this is important because, again, if I'm designing a card, I want to make sure that I am adding whatever element to it that sort of signifies whatever message we're trying to see. We want to make sure that we include things like that so that the reader who is going to be using this product can see that happen within those cards, right? With the pentacles, we're dealing with also cups is a water card. So with the pentacles, we're dealing with materialism, physical relationships, often sexual relationships, and money. That is an earth card. So if you're into metaphysics, think 3D, right? Swords deal with the mental thoughts, movement as well as your ego. This is your conscious mind. So if you're, again, into metaphysics, this is your 4D, right? Your wands, it deals with spirituality, creativity, inspiration, determination, and that spark of life. This is a fire card, and so all of that information came in handy. With the number 4 itself, we're talking about structure, stability, foundation, organization, and manifestation. And with each of those, we combine those baseline interpretations of the suits with our structure, stability, foundation, organization, manifestation, isolation. We get sort of more keywords, right? So with the 4 of Cups, you get someone who is detached, who is contemplating, who is disinterested, who is reevaluating life, who is in retreat. And the phrase that I sort of came to mind with that was, let's take a break, all right? Let's just wait. I got enough. I'm doing good. Let's take a break. So that is the idea that I would like to channel in the design of this card. With the 4 of Pentacles, the 4 of Pentacles, again, deals a lot with scarcity, greed, foundation. This is a person who feels like they're only stable if they have material possessions. This is the only way they see stability in their lives. Never mind whatever else is going on. Never mind having love and family and all of this. If it ain't money, if it don't shine, you know what I mean? If he ain't shining, he don't feel like he's stable or has a foundation. So this person isolates themselves with the goal that they have, right? With all of the money that they have. And I'll show you again what that looks like from the Rider-Waite-Smith perspective. This is a person who's hoarding all of their money, right? And the phrase that came to mind for that for me is, I got me. I got me. You worry about you. I got me, right? So to articulate that idea, I wanted to have someone who was really flashy. Again, I was thinking about I'm Gonna Get You Sucker at the very beginning of that, when he lost his brother to all the gold. It was a gold epidemic. That's sort of what I want to channel when it comes to the 4 of Pentacles. I want this person to be extremely flashy. But as we know, people who sort of lead with flash and money often don't have it, right? They don't got it like they want us to believe they got it. So that's sort of the idea idea that I want to lean into. I think there's going to be a whole lot of fun. When it came to the air card, which were the swords, again, this is the ego, mental, movement. This is the conscious mind. I don't know yet how I want to approach it, so I'm going to skip over there for now, and I may work on this a little bit later. But I'm thinking about someone who's probably in meditation. I do have that with the Hermit. I do actually have quite a few of the characters in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot in meditation and contemplation, so I have to sort of figure out a way to articulate that in a slightly new way. I have not figured that out yet, so I'll come back to that, and that may be one of the last cards that I'll work on. I'm not really sure. But the phrase that came to mind for that, for the Four of Swords, is the calm after the storm and the preparation for the next step. So with the Wands, again, we have spirituality, creativity, sparkle of life, inspiration, determination. And with that, we have home, relaxation with the Four of Wands. Home, relaxation, harmony, union, marriage. And for me, the phrase that came to mind was the home sweet home. So as I was sort of researching this card, I went down this whole rabbit hole about marriage ceremonies, specifically in chattel slavery, and sort of what that looked like for the people who were affected by that. And so I kind of want to dig into that just a bit, but I did want to illustrate a marriage ceremony, specifically the jumping of the broom, and I'm not really sure yet if I'm going to incorporate that, because upon research I sort of learned of its origins and the implications of it in the sort of almost like a humiliation thing. Because what I found was there was a couple of stories where specifically there was a woman who had worked in the house where the people worked in, people worked in the house, people worked in the fields. So the people in the fields would participate in the jumping of the broom ceremony, but the people who worked in the houses or did the domestic work did not, because they knew that they were being made fun of for doing this pagan ritual. So I think all of that is really interesting, but I don't know yet how I'm going to approach it, but I do want to lean into the sort of marriage ceremony. So that is the process of creating cards, right? We go through all of this. I do lots and lots of research, and again, for the resources that I use, just in case you guys are interested, I'm not really sure, but I used Lloyd's Book of Numbers by Lloyd Strayhorn. This is where I got all of my numerology information from. Very, very helpful when it came to actually digging deeper. In addition to my own sort of knowledge base of the fours in the tarot, I also used the 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack, as well as her book Tarot Wisdom, which I really like because Tarot Wisdom talks a lot about different decks, right? So not just the Rider-Waite. Of course, Rider-Waite is the basis of the book and is the most popular, most written about system. She does go through quite a few of the other systems, and that helps as well because it gives additional context to each of the cards so that I can, add all of that information into the images that I create. And then finally, Intuitive Tarot by Bridget Esselmont, who is also known as BD Tarot, who I love. I absolutely love that lady. She is such a sweet woman. But her deck is really nice because it helps you sort of make the approach in tarot pretty easy, right? All right. So I think I've talked y'all's ears off quite a bit this week. We are almost approaching a year of streaming. So at the end of June will be a year of streaming. So when we get to that point, I probably will do a giveaway. So be on the lookout for that. As we, we ain't in June yet, but once we get toward the sort of the end of June, be on the lookout for that. Now, if you like to watch me sort of sketch and work on these cards, very much like I did the Three of Pentacles, because I finished that without even talking about it. We just sort of did it during our Bring Your Own Project streams. Join me Wednesday at 12:45 p.m. Central. That's 1:45 p.m. Eastern, because I will be working on one of these. I don't know which one yet. Probably be the four. I don't know. We'll see. I'll be working on one of these during that stream. And so that'll just be me working, not doing as much talking, and us listening to music. So you get welcome to join and work and, do your thing. I would love to hear in the chat what you're working on during that stream. And then, of course, next Sunday, we will be working on a different one. So I have two going at a time, which worked out really well because we were able to, or I was able to complete the Three of Swords, which is the card that we've been working on these past Sunday streams. So I'll show you that. And also I was able to finish the Three of Pentacles, and I did that exclusively on those Wednesday streams. So if you want to just sort of watch me work and watch me fiddle along, the funny thing about the Three of Pentacles is that as I was working on it, especially the initial sketch, I was messing up. I was struggling real bad. So to be able to work that out live is always sort of a humbling experience, but it does show you that even though I've been an artist for most of my life, you know, we all still make mistakes. I'm still learning as an artist and growing, and I want you guys to learn and grow in whatever it is that you do, whatever your thing is, because that's perfectly normal, right? If you stop growing and changing, then you know you're dead. You might as well call it a day. So as long as you are open to growing, as long as you are open to making mistakes, you will have a wonderful time creating whatever it is you do. And I hope that watching me work on and talk 90 miles an hour about the things that I'm passionate about inspires you to lean into your passions or find something that you're passionate about, because it makes things so much better. It does. So this is the Three of Pentacles that we finished during the Bring Your Own Project streams over the last couple of weeks. And again, this Wednesday we'll be starting on a new card. Next Sunday we'll be starting on a new card. So these are the 2 cards that I finished this week. So thank you so much again for watching. Whether you're watching this live or the replay, please let me know in the comments. Say hey. Don't forget to say hey. Shout out to PL. Hey, I hope you're doing well. Shout out to Draw Sketchbook and Black Zetsu. Thank you so much for stopping by the chat. And until next week, I hope you guys have a happy, prosperous, and creative week. Peace.